Hey, what's going on, guys? OJ back here with another tier list for you. Today, we are going to be talking about professional bag salesmen. Now, when I say professional bag salesmen, I mean fighters who at first start looking really good, and maybe they've been on a downward spiral, but they're recently coming back in a career resurgence. So you start to believe in them again. But these fighters, every time you start to believe in them, they will sell the bag, because at the end of the day, these guys are professional bag salesmen, and they will lose in the most disappointing ways possible. So today we are going to be talking about professional bag salesmen in the UFC. So without wasting any more time, let's start the video off with Daniel Zellhuber. I'm putting Daniel Zellhuber straight in the A tier. Now, me personally, I didn't really believe in Daniel Zellhuber all that much. Because I never thought he was anything special. But I think a lot of people, they saw some talent in him, especially in that Ribovich fight, which although he lost, he looked really good. He had a tough chin in there. And Zellhuber honestly looked like a talented prospect in the lightweight division. But after that Ribovich fight, Daniel Zellhuber has proceeded to look incredibly mid. Both in the Michael Johnson fight and especially the Bobby Green fight. And keep in mind, in both of those fights, Daniel Zellhuber was at least a minus 400 favorite according to the odds makers. So Daniel Zellhuber, whenever you put faith in this guy, he will fuck up your parlay. The Mexican card, one of the fights that I got wrong, which I didn't get that many wrong to be honest, but one of them that I got wrong, this guy just happened to get knocked out by 38-year-old Bobby Green in the year 2026. And honestly, if you're getting knocked out by Bobby Green in the year 2026, I don't see much of a future for you in the UFC. So unfortunately for Daniel Zellhuber, there was once a time where people actually rated him, but I think a lot of people are now coming to the realization that Zellhuber's shit. Zellhuber is shit because he is a professional bag salesman. Moving on, we got Grant Dawson. I'm going to put Grant Dawson in the B tier. Now, Grant Dawson, unlike Zellhuber, is actually pretty good. Especially in the grappling. I don't see many guys really out-grappling Grant Dawson, and that's where Grant Dawson does his best work. But there are occasions where you see Grant Dawson fight on the feet, and you go oh my god, he's gonna get knocked out in 20 seconds, isn't he? And that's typically what happens if he stands on the feet for longer than a minute. The Bobby Green fight, Bobby Green just knocked him out in 37 seconds with a 1-2 down the pipe. I don't know what to feel about that, but alright, fair enough. You could say that was a fluke. But then he got ran over by Manuel Torres. And I understand that Manuel Torres is a really good talent in the top 15 right now, but you couldn't shoot one takedown in this fight. I'm sorry, Grant Dawson. The fact that you actually thought you could strike, you just kind of sold the bag for multiple people's parlays. All right. Now, me personally, I did pick Manuel Torres to win this fight, but I could see why a lot of people believed in Grant Dawson to beat Manuel Torres because, again, Manuel Torres hasn't been really tested in the grappling, and Grant Dawson is an elite-level grappler who, unfortunately, does not have any chin to be a top-tier MMA fighter. So, yeah, Grant Dawson, he's good. If he can get his grappling going, he is a very solid fighter, but there comes a time where Dawson's starting to feel himself on the feet, and then he'll pay for it by getting slimed out brutally in the first round. Because at the end of the day, Dawson, he shouldn't be striking. He really shouldn't. I understand that he's an MMA fighter and all that, but he just should not be striking. And I think that Dawson, every time he decides to strike for more than a minute, the danger levels are extremely high because there's a good chance that he'll get knocked out in the process. Now, moving on, we got Dustin Jacoby. I'm going to say he has back salesman tendencies. I think that Dustin Jacoby, he is good. I do think that you have to be a legitimately good fighter in order to beat him. But some of the losses I watched back of Dustin Jacoby, I'm you let him off the hook. Take, for example, the Alonzo Menifield fight. Dustin Jacoby looked to be the objectively better kickboxer in there. But then Alonzo Menifield had the big moments, dropping him multiple times throughout the entire fight, and which is how Alonzo Menifield was able to beat Dustin Jacoby. And even when he's fighting like Dominic Reyes, where I get it, Dominic Reyes is very good, but that was Dominic Reyes when he had no confidence, and he was looked at as a sacrificial lamb. And Dustin Jacoby ultimately fumbled the bag by getting slimed out by Dominic Reyes in the first round. But overall, I'm going to say that Dustin Jacoby, he has some back salesman tendencies, but he's a great fighter. Alright, and you have to be actually good in order to beat someone like Dustin Jacoby. Alright, now moving on, we got Randy Brown. I'm going to put Randy Brown in the D tier. I understand some of his losses don't look pretty, especially his last loss against Gabriel Bonfim, where he got flatlined in the second round. But I overall think that Randy Brown's solid. Like, you actually have to be good in order to beat Randy Brown. And although Randy Brown, every time he gets, like, that ranked caliber competition, he seems to fumble the bag, I still think that Randy Brown, he's just unfortunately meeting the wrong person at the wrong time. And I think that overall, had Randy Brown taken more approachable matchups, I do think he has a solid chance to win. Like, I think that, current day Neil Magny, I think Randy Brown can easily beat. I think that Randy Brown can also beat someone like Gilbert Burns at this point. But overall, though, I'm going to say that Randy Brown, he's just meeting the wrong matchups. And unfortunately, he will never get into the rankings because of that. But overall, he's a solid fighter. He's a very good fighter. And in order to be a ranked contender, you have to beat someone like Randy Brown because he's just that step below. So I wouldn't really call him a bag salesman. He's more of an elite level gatekeeper. Moving on, we got Dan Ige. I'm going to put Dan Ige, I'm going to put him in the B tier, right? Now, I understand that Dan Ige was also considered an elite level gatekeeper for the longest time, but I don't think Dan Ige really has the best finishing potential. Like, sure, he can flatline Andre Fili and guys who shouldn't even be in the discussions for a ranked opponent. But at the end of the day, though, every time Dan Ige fights someone who shows a little bit of promise, and whenever he does have opportunities to finish the fight, he always seems to fumble the bag. The most recent example I can give you guys is Leroy Murphy, where he dropped Leroy Murphy in the first round, and then unfortunately couldn't really finish the fight after dropping Leroy Murphy in the first round because he got out-grappled by Leroy Murphy for 3 rounds. And it's very unfortunate, because I do feel like Dan Ige could have won some of these fights, but he's very slow. His grappling is somewhat limited, in my opinion, as well. And although he has his moments, he just has been losing way too many times due to lack of output. So I feel like Dan Ige, sure, like, he can get a knockout against, like, lower levels of competition, but whenever he's fighting someone who's actually showing promise, someone who's climbing up the rankings of the featherweight division, and he has an opportunity to win, he doesn't seem to cash it in. And somehow that opponent is able to survive and make it a close decision. Where, Dan Ige got robbed. But, like, it's happened way too many times in Dan Ige's career where he leaves the fight really close against, like, these solid level competition fighters. So I feel like Dan Ige, he is a back salesman. I wouldn't say he's, like, in the A or the S tier just because he is still solid, although now he's kind of been losing a lot of fights. But I do think that Dan Ige does have back salesmen within himself. Alright, now moving on, we got Christian Rodriguez. I'm putting him in the A tier. Christian Rodriguez is a professional back salesman because whenever he's fighting an undefeated prospect who he has no business beating, that's when Christian Rodriguez really puts the mustard in and decides to beat the undefeated prospect that the UFC has been hyping up. But then the second he fights someone like a Julian Erosa or an Andre Fili, that's when Christian Rodriguez just completely unfolds and fumbles the bag. Alright, because Christian Rodriguez, I don't know why, he only shows up whenever there's an undefeated prospect, And it just seems like C-Rod, believing in him is very difficult, right? Every time you believe in him, every time the UFC believes in him, that's when Christian Rodriguez somehow manages to lose a fight that a lot of people coming into it thought he could win. So Christian Rodriguez, prime time example of a professional back salesman, and I would not be shocked if he beats the next undefeated prospect in the UFC. All right, now moving on, we got Jake Matthews. It pains me to say this because at one point I did think that this guy was going to be a ranked contender, but it just seems like a common pattern at this point. You know, he starts racking up a couple of wins, he looks improved. Oh my gosh, Jake Matthews looks like a world beater out there. Then he gets his jump up in competition, and yeah, it doesn't go well for him, typically. Like, I thought he could beat Neil Magny. Fair enough. The first round, I understand that, like, the ref kind of messed things up. But still, though, like, please beat Neil Magny in the year 2026. We just saw Yaroslav Amosov just come in and destroy Neil Magny with no resistance. And I feel like Jake Matthews, like, every time he gets these opportunities to become a ranked contender, that's when Jake Matthews sells the bag, all right? Like, again, Neil Magny should not be going to the third round with you and getting the flukiest Starstroke I've ever seen. Like, Neil Magny should have been put away in the first or second round. Like, we all know that Neil Magny, if he can cockroach his way through, he'll cockroach his way through and find a way to win the fight. Bruh. Ask Mike Malott, for example. And I feel like Jake Matthews, unfortunately, I don't think he's gonna be a ranked contender anytime soon. Like, and I've played these games way too long. All right, like I've kind of stopped believing in Jake Matthews at this point because every time he looks promising, I know what's gonna happen. He's gonna fight the next hot prospect, or he's gonna fight a veteran of the division, and he's going to somehow lose the fight. I know what's going to happen. He's going to go on a 3-fight win streak and then proceed to lose to someone who's in the rankings or someone just outside of the rankings, because at the end of the day, Jake Matthews, he's a professional bag salesman. Now, moving on, we got Ode Ousbourne. I'm going to put Ode Ousbourne, I'm going to put him in the C tier. Now, Ode Ousbourne's not that good. I feel like a lot of people can agree with me on this, but there are times where Ode Ousbourne has chances to win the fight, and he fumbles the bag. Like, the latest example I can give you, Steve Erceg. He dropped Steve Erceg in the first round, and then Steve Erceg was able to recover by just out-wrestling him for 3 rounds. Like, I feel like Ode Ousbourne, unless he's fighting someone like Louis Gurul, he just somehow finds a way to sell the bag and make it a very close fight that shouldn't happen close had he been able to finish the fight in the first round. So unfortunately for Ode Ousbourne, he had a lot of chances to make upsets in the UFC. You know, he fought Ronaldo Rodriguez, but unfortunately couldn't really finish the triangle choke because he didn't cut the angle for 2 entire minutes. He also fumbled the bag again against Steve Erceg, and I feel like that's been the story of Ode Ousbourne's career. And then again, though, I do understand that Ode Ousbourne, he's not the best caliber fighter, but he did have an opportunity to beat someone in the top 10, as well as someone who the UFC were trying to prop up as this next big superstar. But unfortunately, Ode Ousbourne could not cash it in because Ode Ousbourne is a back salesman. Now, moving on, we got Damon Blackshear. I'm going to put him in the B tier. Very similar to Jake Matthews, in my opinion. It feels like every time Damon Blackshear is getting a ranked opponent, he just somehow gets a roadblock ahead of him. The latest example I can give you is Davey Grant, where I thought that Damon Blackshear was going to beat Davey Grant. Blackshear has elite level grappling, and I thought that he was going to use it to his advantage by submitting Davey Grant sometime in the second or third round. But unfortunately, Damon Blackshear, after the first round, just did not really grapple. I don't know. It was kind of a weird fight, in my opinion. And Davey Grant did Davey Grant things, fair enough. He was able to out-kickbox Damon Blackshear in the later rounds of the fight. But I feel like Damon Blackshear, this has been a common occurrence throughout his career. You know, for example, Montel Jackson, where Montel Jackson was able to KO him 18 seconds into the fight. And then, for example, the Mario Bautista fight, which, fair enough, you could say it was a robbery. Damon Blackshear should have won. but I feel like this is very common in Damon Blackshear's career. You know, he wins a couple of fights against bums. Oh, he looks like a world beater. The UFC give him a jump up in competition against someone who's like just outside of the rankings, if not ranked caliber. And then bam, Damon Blackshear finds a way to sell the bag because he is a bag salesman at the end of the day. Alright, now moving on, we got Mike Malott. I'm going to put him in the C tier. I feel like Mike Malott, he's not that good. I really don't think there's any promise to him. But the UFC is doing a good job steering him around all the dangerous matchups. So they can, make the Canadian fans believe that they have a legitimate prospect in their hands. But there's gonna come a time where Mike Malott's gonna fumble the bag. Like, I'm gonna call it right now. I would not be shocked if he loses to Gilbert Burns. All right, I understand that Gilbert Burns, he looks completely washed, but we've seen this before 2 years ago against Neil Magny. And Mike Malott, like, although he's bounced back with 3 wins in a row, can we be real? Like, do we rate any of those wins other than the Radke fight? Not really. So I feel like Mike Malott, he's an industry plant that's been carefully maneuvered around in order to get himself approachable matchups into the rankings. But there is going to come a time where the Canadians start hyping Mike Malott up, and then next thing you know, Mike Malott gets brutally flatlined in the first round because at the end of the day, there's not much to Mike Malott's game. There really isn't. And again, Gilbert Burns, I think, is an objectively more skilled fighter. It's just that his chin is completely cooked. But I would not be shocked if Gilbert Burns wins because at the end of the day, Mike Malott is completely mid. Alright, now moving on, we got Phil Rowe. I'm going to put him in the D tier. Now, I understand that he has professional bag salesman tendencies, but still though, I think that he's just not good in the first place. Like, he has lost a lot of fights in the UFC, and the only fights he's won, I just don't rate them at all. And I feel like Phil Rowe, every time he gets taken down, like, you would think a jiu-jitsu expert could find one submission, but he doesn't really even find submissions in guard, which is a specialty. So I feel like Phil Rowe, unfortunately, I would call him a bag salesman if he was like half decent and if he was on like a solid win streak at multiple points in his career. But as of recently, like, I don't see that. Like, he's only had one win over the last, like, 2-3 years against Ange Loosa, and Ange Loosa got cut from the UFC. So I feel like Phil Rowe, although he was solid at one point, I just don't think he's all that. Like, I really don't. On the feet, he doesn't throw that much output. And his ground game, I feel like, is massively overrated by the fans. So I feel like Phil Rowe, there was a one time where he looked like a promising prospect, but I don't think that's the case anymore because he's just been losing fights over and over again over the last couple of years. Now, moving on, we got Jalin Turner. I'm going to put Jalin Turner in the B tier. I feel like Jalin Turner is a bag salesman. The most famous example of Jalin Turner selling the bag is when he fought Renato Moicano at UFC 300, where he tried to get a walk-off KO, but didn't really do that all that well, and proceeded to pay for it, got by getting beaten up by Renato Moicano in the second round. Alright, that's basically the story of Jalin Turner's career. He does well in the first round, gets Dan Hooker with a head kick, drops Mateusz Gamrot, drops Renato Moicano badly, fumbles to finish most of the time. Like, that's basically Jalin Turner. Unless you're fighting like an unk of the division, like, if Jalin Turner was fighting like Bobby Green or Edson Barbosa, then yeah, he will finish the fight in the first round. But every time he's fighting these ranked caliber levels of competition, I feel like Jalin Turner will find a way to lose the fight when he's in a winning position. Like, even in the Bahamondes fight, I thought that Jalin Turner would be able to just outstrike Bahamondes. And because also Bahamondes, like, it's not like he can really grapple all that heavily unless he's in guard. But Bahamondes, he got to the ground, and Jalin Turner was able to just get on top. But then rather than really attempting to escape the submissions, he just let himself get triangle choked because he's a bag salesman. And unfortunately, that's been the story of Jalin Turner's career. And unless he's fighting unks of the division, he will continue to find ways to disappoint the fans by losing fights that he honestly should have had a winning position in. Moving on, though, we got Ourmar Sy. I'm going to put him in the A tier. All right, Ourmar Sy. He is a professional bag salesman. Every time the UFC tried to prop him up as the next big thing from France, Ourmar Sy will find ways to fumble the bag. Right? The most famous example, Alonzo Menifield, where Ourmar Sy and Alonzo Menifield went to a mid-off for 3 rounds straight. And sure, you could say, oh, Ourmar Sy, he got too nervous. That was his first ranked opponent. Then he made a bounce-back win against Brenson Ribeiro, and I'm like, okay, there's something there. All right, I do think that there's something there. Then he fought Ion Cutelaba, who I will say Ion Cutelaba is solid, but if you're getting mounted guillotined in the first round by Ion Cutelaba, I don't really believe in you moving on in your UFC career because you just looked completely mid in that fight. Like, it wasn't just the fact that Ion Cutelaba got the mounted guillotine. It's the fact that Ourmar Sy just let it happen because he's a jiu-jitsu athlete first, where he'll rather play Zellhuber rather than trying to get back up to the feet and strike using his 83-inch reach. Every time he's finding solid levels of competition, he'll find a way to sell the bag. And honestly, I could just say he's dog shit. I really could just say he's dog shit, but at the end of the day, though, like, there was actual expectations placed on him, considering he was an undefeated prospect. He was looking good throughout some of his earlier fights. But as of recently, he's just been fumbling the bag over and over again every time he's getting solid levels of competition. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody can really believe in Ourmar Sy moving forward. Moving on, we got Anthony Smith. Oh my gosh. Shout out to primetime Armadillo guard Anthony Smith. I really want to see Anthony Smith fight one more time, just to see the Armadillo guard come out. But I'm going to say Anthony Smith in this C tier. I understand that Anthony Smith's just awful, so I could honestly just put him in the D tier, but there was one time where I thought that Anthony Smith could win me a fight in my parlay, and he let me down. The way he let me down was when he fought Roman Dolidze in International Fight Week, where Roman Dolidze, who, keep in mind, he is awful, and moving up to light heavyweight on 4 days' notice. And I'm thinking to myself, yes, Anthony Smith, he is mid, and I should not really be picking him to win any fight in the UFC. But so is Roman Dolidze. And considering Anthony Smith has more experience at light heavyweight, I think that Anthony Smith can get the job done in a mid-decision over the course of 3 rounds. That did not happen. And not only did that not happen, Roman Dolidze looked like a technical maestro against Anthony Smith. I don't know how Anthony Smith made Roman Dolidze, of all people, look like a technical maestro, but he somehow made Roman Dolidze look like a technical maestro on the feet and on the ground. According to Anthony Smith, Roman Dolidze is just a nightmare stylistic matchup. I hate to break it to you, Smith. If Roman Dolidze is a nightmare stylistic matchup, you're just dog shit at fighting. I don't know how else I can say it. And I feel like that's been the story of Anthony Smith's career. I was a fool for believing in Anthony Smith to beating Roman Dolidze because in hindsight, Anthony Smith is worse than trash like Roman Dolidze. Anthony Smith is complete, utter dog shit at mixed martial arts. But for some reason, the UFC keep propping him up as this, Lionheart, man. He never quits in the fight. Like, I've seen him quit, like, every single fight outside of the John Jones one. Like, I don't understand why the UFC keep doing this, but the UFC keep propping Anthony Smith as if he's this legend of the sport, when in reality, Anthony Smith, he has done nothing but just getting destroyed throughout his entire UFC career. Last but not least, we got the GOAT bag salesman himself, Kevin Holland. All right, Kevin Holland, where do I even begin with this guy? Every time you try to believe in Kevin Holland, that's when he starts losing fights. And every time you don't believe in Kevin Holland, that's when he wins. Like, take for example, just in 2025 alone, Gunnar Nelson versus Kevin Holland. Coming into that fight, I thought that Gunnar Nelson was going to just out-wrestle Kevin Holland, keep him in bottom and just have more control time, Kevin Holland showed some jiu-jitsu and actually got a very good, exciting fight out of that. And he won the fight. Fair enough. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe there's something to Kevin Holland. And then he finished Vicente Luque, and I'm like, okay, he finished Vicente Luque. That's actually pretty hard to do. Then he fought Daniel Rodriguez. And I thought coming into that fight, all right, surely Kevin Holland can win this. Because Daniel Rodriguez, he's 37 years old, and he doesn't grapple. He just likes to strike on the feet. And it's not like his striking is all that technical. He just likes to street box with you. Kevin Holland somehow found a way to lose that fight. I don't know how he found a way to lose that fight, but he somehow did. And you could say, oh, Kevin Holland should have won that fight. Like, he shouldn't have even made it close with Daniel Rodriguez, all right? Like, losing to Daniel Rodriguez in the year 2025, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're supposed to be the ranked contender here. The UFC gave you a favorable matchup in Daniel Rodriguez because we all know that you don't like wrestlers and you don't like talented kickboxers. So they gave you D-Rod. And you still fumbled the bag against D-Rod because you're a professional back salesman. And then to top it all off, when he fought Mike Malott in October, like, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy doing? Like, he just stands in range, not doing anything for 3 rounds. And he actually made Mike Malott look somewhat capable. Right? Like, I'm sorry, if you're making Mike Malott look somewhat capable, I don't think you're all that good. And unfortunately, that's the story of Kevin Holland's career. All right, he gets wins over guys like who are past their prime or not very good in the first place. And then you start believing in him. Next thing you know, you start seeing him lose a couple of fights and you're like, why the fuck did I ever pick this guy to win a fight? Because Kevin Holland, he is the greatest bag salesman of all time. He will destroy your parlay, win or lose. And chances are, Kevin Holland, now that I'm like so down on him, he's probably gonna win his next couple of fights. And then every time I start believing in Kevin Holland, that's when Kevin Holland's going to just throw the fight and sell the bag. Alright, that's gonna be it for this video. If you guys want to see more videos like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so we can monetize this channel. But otherwise, leave any comments down below how you guys feel about these bag salesmen, as well as any other video suggestions you have for me in the comments down below. But otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Peace.